makes sense to me because cows and all this stuff popped up out of nowhere. And I just wanted to know, do you believe the spiritual part of it? Like, how does genetics have to do with also in the spiritual realm, though? How do you differentiate? You're like, how can you just, you know what I mean?
Well, I really, obviously that's a question that nobody can answer definitively. I can give you the suggestion that about 5% of our genome actually seems to function to produce proteins, to do all the work of our bodies. Most of our genetic code is what's called junk DNA. They don't understand what it does. They don't understand why it reproduces so faithfully if it doesn't seem to have any kind of obvious use to us. Why is the bulk of our genome useless, basically useless? It doesn't make sense. So let's assume that possibly that is what carries spirit. That is what transfers spirit. That is what, where spirit is housed, if indeed spirit is real. And I'm in no position to say that is true, and neither are you. We're told it is, but, still there's no proof. But junk DNA, for lack of a better explanation for what it's doing there and why our bodies, conserve it so, quote, religiously, no pun intended, that might be the answer right there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Derek. Next up, one more before the break. Richard in St. Louis, you're up with us. Hey, Richard.
Hey, great to talk to you guys. I got two questions. Two for the guests. And
sure.
And one for George at the end. Now, the first is a clarification. When you say hominoid, do you use that term interchangeably with hominid? Because I know for a fact that there are more than 4 identified hominids.
Well, I use hominoid in the sense of upright, walking, hair-covered primate, indigenous primate of planet Earth. Hominoids, that's Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Almas, a Yeti, abominable snowman, a Agagwe, Sidapas, like that, the 4 different kinds. Hominoids, upright walking, hair-covered, bipedal creatures that are indigenous to planet Earth.
Okay, now how do the habilis, erectus, Neanderthalensis, Florenzius,
they're all called hominids.
Right.
Part of us, they're just pre-humans. They are collectively grouped by science as humans simply because they walk upright. Even though there's not a human bone in their bodies, there's not a human aspect to their face. Again, the big brow ridges, the big night vision eyes, the lack of foreheads, all of that. They're still nonetheless classified as human, therefore hominids. And I say that they are, in fact, hominoids.
Okay, now my second question actually kind of answers it. Now, are the wrist bones the only criteria you're using for the Homo floresiensis, the Hobbit?
The Hobbit. No, it's not the only criterion, but I say again, and you can see this on the 60 Minutes interview about it, where the guys who found it say, no, there's not really any human bones. All the bones are bigger, more robust, exactly like with all the hominoids. The skull, all you got to do is look at the skull, the big round eyes, the big brow ridges, the lack of the forehead. All of that is consistent with the pre-human skulls, but they were still able to make the argument that, well, it's a deformed human, it's got to be a human, it's upright, it's got to be some kind of deformed human, except when they looked at the wrist bones really carefully, they found humans have a distinctive kind of wrist, and primates have a distinctive different kind of wrist. And the Hobbit wrist is much more like primates than it is like humans, so it's clear it's not a human because it doesn't have a human wrist.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Also for George,
Rich.
I actually sent you an email. I'm an artist. My name is Prince E. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and it was a video I sent you. It's called Bars from Sumer. I just wanted to know if you checked it out.
I think Tommy's got it first, Richard. He's looking at it.
Okay.
And then he'll send it on to me.
Okay, cool.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. The old hometown of St. Louis Mo. Lloyd, what's home for you?
Well, a little town called Amite, Louisiana, which is just north of Hammond, about 60 miles north of New Orleans.
Small family? Big family?
Yeah, three siblings and myself, and I spring from the soil, George. I grew up in a little small town.
Do they love the work you do?
No.
Really?
No. It's a red state, George.
Yeah.
It's deep in the heart of a red state. Now, I mean, I have my friends they're bemused by what I do, but they don't really understand it. Most people just don't understand it. It's so far beyond the country life, they just can't begin to grasp it. Really.
I got to tell you, Lloyd, this audience is so unusual in that they do understand. They understand what you do. They understand this economic situation. They're brilliant.
They are this audience for this show is probably the most in-tuned together, on top of it, group of people massed together in one place in this country that probably there is.
We're coming right back. We'll take final phone calls with Lloyd Pye. I'm George Norrie. This is Coast to Coast AM. On our next Coast to Coast program, Stephen Broad joins us, and we're going to talk about his lifelong interest in psychokinesis and the evidence of the survival of death. I'm fascinated with your work, Lloyd. I always have been. I mean, it's at one time, I know it's been frustrating getting some of these answers, but it's also got to be challenging for you, huh?
It is. It's very difficult, very challenging, and it's always interesting, and that's what makes it valuable to me. It's never boring, always interesting. There's always the next page you turn over in a book could be the thing that'll just jump out and solve some major problem. You just never know. You got to just keep reading, keep digging,
and never stop. How much support are you beginning to pick up?
Well, none really so far, except for what's happened here with the documentary. I'm hoping that some will come along. We've just been eking our way along like everybody in this field does, but we're hoping for a real breakthrough. It's still going to be another year. I've got to get through this year to get through to the goal line of when the program airs. But when that happens, things should really pick up. And I would think as we move toward the resolution of the testing, things will begin to pick up as well. I would say from the middle to the end of next year should be a good time. I just have to get from here to there.
Let's talk a little bit about the Hobbit, discovered in 2004. How intelligent do you think these things were?
Well, I think they're as intelligent as any of the other hominoids. I think they're hominoids. I think they're smarter than chimps, smarter than gorillas, not as smart as us, but smart enough to make tools, tools in the sense of chip rocks and turn them into working devices, maybe weave fibers into, blankety-type things or things to sit on, just basic stuff, build shelters, use brush to build shelters, things like that. Certainly mimic animals, hunt, I think not human, but still smarter than chimps, smarter than gorillas.
All right, to the phones we go. People are waiting for you. Santa Clara, California. Hey, Edward, go ahead.
Yeah, should we go explore the Cydonia region of Mars to find out if the Starchild's ancestors may have come from that area?
Well, that's an interesting possibility, Lloyd.
Well, anything is possible, you're right, but I think, it's been hard enough to get somebody to put up a couple of 100,000
here.
So to get them to go to Mars just to look for that, I don't see that anytime, not in my lifetime anyway.
Past civilizations, do any of them have anything that could be similar with the Starchild?
I don't know. Past civilizations living on Earth, anything's possible there. That feels wide open. There's certainly a lot of, getting back to Michael Cremo, there's certainly a lot of OOP-arts, out-of-place artifacts that go back millions of years, and they're very sophisticated, some of them. So clearly there's been a lot of action on this planet going back millions of years. Is that human beings? No. Human beings as we are, as you and I and everybody listening, our genetic heritage only goes back about 200,000 years max. So whatever was here playing around and leaving artifacts behind that are found by, the research of people like Michael Cremo, those are not human beings. They're something else.
Let's go to Vinny in Brooklyn, New York. You're on the air with us. Go ahead, Vinny.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
Hey, George. Hey, Lloyd. You were on TV today. We're watching the Starchild. My brother and I were watching that earlier this evening. It was a good program. Actually, it's very exciting. It's definitely everything that's happening. I'm very looking forward to the outcome of this, and definitely very excited. You were talking about the genetics, and you were saying there would be a difference. I mean, what's going to be the difference? Are we going to, are you going to be able to say, this is alien DNA, or is it just